Today is July the 8th, 2018. My name is Tanya Finchum. I'm with Oklahoma State University, and today with me is Stacy DeLano with the Stillwater Public Library, and we are here with Benny Westbrook, and this is part of our project on Stillwater's African American Heritage project. So thank you for coming today.
Well, you're welcome.
Let's begin with learning when and where you were born.
Well, I was born September the 6th, 1941, right outside of Perkins, Oklahoma.
At home or in a hospital?
No, in the hospital. Not in the hospital. I was at home.
At home.
And I just happened to be one of them days, the day I was born, there wasn't nobody at the house but my mother. So I don't know what she did about the neighbor when they had to cut that string. I don't know what happened there, but there wasn't nobody at the house but her and when I was born.
Well, were you the first or her first child?
No, I was the second. I got an older sister.
Okay. So she may have known a little bit what to do.
Well, I see she's only about 2 years older than I am, so I don't know what she knew, but I can tell you that.
No, but your mother may have known. Since
yeah, she may have known.
Yeah. So any younger than you?
Yes.
So how many brothers and sisters do you have?
Well, all together is 7 of us.
Okay.
5 boys and 2 girls.
Okay.
And may we know their names?
I got an older sister. Her name is Wanda. And then there's me, Benny. And my next brother, his name is Willie Ray. And then there's Charles. And then there's Manziel. And then the baby boy is Earl Dean, which is I got 2 brothers that is not with us.
Okay.
And both of my sisters are still alive. My older sister, she's 2 years older than I am, and then my baby sister, she's about 63 or something like that.
Well, what age did your parents live to?
Well, my dad died in 1975.
How old was he?
Oh man, let's see. He's been dead 75. He must have been about 70 in 1970. He was in his early 40s.
Oh yeah, pretty
because
young.
He died in 1975. And my mother passed away in 2010. Because when she passed away, he had been gone 35 years.
And what were their names?
My mother's name is Ione Betty Lee.
Okay.
And my dad's name was Thurman.
And were they born in Oklahoma? Do you know?
I know my mother was born on the whole place down there in Perkins.
Okay.
She was born there.
Yes. And my dad was born probably Michigan or somewhere.
Okay.
And do you know how he came about to come to Oklahoma?
I have no idea.
And do you happen to know?
Huh?
Do you happen to know your mom's maiden name, her family name?
My mother's maiden name, since I was born in no hospital, her maiden name is actually Westbrook.
Gotcha.
And actually, my name is Jefferson.
Okay.
Benny Ray Jefferson Westbrook.
Well, like with a hyphen almost.
Right. That's the way they did it when I was in the military. You know, they looked at records back, and that's the way they put it, and that's the way I went.
So when it was time to go to school, did you go in Perkins, or had you already moved to Stillwater?
I had already moved to Stillwater.
Okay.
She had given the farm up. She got tired of picking cotton again, chopping corn and all that kind of stuff. She had already moved to Stillwater.
Well, was she a sharecropper, or did she own the place?
You mean her dad?
Well, who?
Prince Albert, I can't tell you that.
Okay.
I don't know if he probably, back during that time and the way things were, he probably was a sharecropper.
Yeah, probably.
Probably was.
Hmm. So where did you live when you moved to Stillwater?
The first place we lived was on in 66605 West 10th.
Okay. You remember, huh?
Yes.
And did you stay in that house until you graduated from high school?
No, I went to school. I went to school the early years and started school in 1947.
Okay. After the war. Okay.
Yes, because one of my uncles had come from. Actually, he was in the war, you know. And then I went 1 year in Glencoe, Oklahoma,
Okay.
and then the rest of it Stillwater,
At Washington School?
Washington School.
Okay.
That uncle, was that that was your mom's brother?
No, that was my mom's uncle.
Your mom's uncle. And so his name was also Westbrook
Yes.
then?
Yes, Isaac Westbrook.
That'll be great. I'd like to look up some information about him and being in the war. So thank you.
No, you talking about the one that was in the war?
Mhm.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was her brother.
So his name was Westbrook.
Yes.
Great.
His name was Jim. As a matter of fact, I got his discharge.
Hmm.
Yes. His name was James.
James
You know,
Westbrook.
everybody called him. We called him Uncle Jim.
Well, what took you to Glencoe? Or,
I'm gonna just put it like this: family troubles.
it's fair enough. Okay. So, and then you came back to Stillwater
Yes.
and started Washington School. Second grade?
I had already been in Washington School.
Oh, and then you went and they came back.
Yeah.
What year did you graduate from?
I didn't.
You didn't?
No.
Well, how far did you get?
9th grade.
9th grade? Okay. And that
But I have been to college.
got a GED somewhere along the
No,
way?
I didn't have to have one. When I went to school down at Southeastern State in Durant, Oklahoma, I didn't have to have it. When I went to Tonkawa, which was, what was the name? They changed the name of the school. It was a junior college.
Northern Oklahoma.
Northern Oklahoma Junior College. And when I was over there, they had a football team and all that stuff.
What did you major in?
Business.
Business? Okay. So you have an associate or a bachelor's degree?
Yes.
Okay. And you were in the military?
Yes. Air Force.
Air Force. So how old were you when you joined the military?
On my 17th birthday.
Okay. Did your parents have to sign, or could you do it
No, I
yourself?
was 17 and I didn't have to sign. No, my
Okay.
dad was in Michigan,
Okay.
so
That's getting close to the cutoff age, so parents
Yeah.
had to sign if you
Yeah.
were.
didn't nobody have to sign for me.
Is that the Korean War time period then? When you enlisted?
When I enlisted in 1958,
A little bit after, yes.
now I missed. I guess I don't know. I never was in I think there was no wars going on when I was in the service.
You didn't see combat.
No combat.
Okay.
I think my two brothers, two of them was in Vietnam, and both of them today got that Agent Orange.
Yeah.
Well, when you were in, were there other blacks in your unit?
Yes, my first sergeant was, no, I take that back. My first sergeant was named Koval. Sergeant Koval, and the guy had him was a master, a chief master sergeant, had the stripes up like that. His name was Little. When I was stationed at first, I was at Maelstrom. No, take that Lackland.
Okay.
And then I went to Randolph, and that's when they moved me from Randolph. That just killed me for being in the military.
How so?
It was just the job, that I had when I was over. It's a place where they train the pilots. And you didn't have to go through all that saluting, boy, it's a lot of stuff. Mm-hmm. It was just like a job. You went to work at 8 o'clock and got off at 5. That's the way it was.
And what was your job?
I was a clerk.
Clerk. Learned to type?
Yes.
Had you learned how to do that at Washington School?
Nope. I learned how to do that. They sent me to typing school when I was in the military.
Now, it's my understanding there was an amazing typing teacher at Washington that everyone liked a lot. But you didn't take her.
No. Was it Miss Clay or Miss Bent? Did they ever name
I think Miss Clay.
Miss Clay?
And we've had several people say what a good teacher she was and that she was the typing teacher.
Her and Miss Bentford both. And Tom was a fair teacher, and then J.F. Ballard was a heck of a teacher. And Miss Bruce Haskins Johnson, she was another good teacher. Miss Crosby, that was my first grade teacher.
First grade?
Yes. I was in 1947.
You remember it like yesterday.
Oh, yeah, I remember. and I was just telling my grandkids the other day. I said, now when I went to school, there was no snow days. If the snow was 3 feet out there, you went to school. They didn't have all this what y'all got now. If it happened to be 105 degrees out there, you went to school. So school started in September, out in May.
And would you walk?
I had to walk. The school was on 12th Street. I lived on 10th.
Oh.
So I had at least about 2.5 blocks to walk.
Not too bad.
No, it wasn't too bad. Snowball fights and all that kind of stuff. Oh, man, what you doing?
The littlest grandchildren may not even know what a snowball is. It's been so long.
Well, they know. Them kids know it snows. They know where it is. But they just, and I said, when I went to school, kids, you could get a bottle of pop for a nickel. If you had a quarter in your pocket, you could get a bottle of pop, you could get you some chips, and you had 15 cents left.
And where would you get that in your neighborhood?
Doing different things, like scooping snow off of them old women's sidewalk, mowing their yards, emptying the trash. There was always some kind of way to make a little bit of money.
Okay.
And if you wasn't afraid to hang around the bootleggers, they paid more.
Now that's the first we've heard about that. Tell us more.
What?
The bootlegger. Tell us more.
Man, I better shut up. Other people read this, they may jack me up.
No, you don't have to name names, just...
Plus the statute of limitations is passed.
Oh, it's been gone.
We're okay on it.
Yeah.
So there was a bootlegger in the neighborhood? Or
hey, my grandpa was a bootlegger.
Your grandpa was a bootlegger?
Sweet Home, Oklahoma.
So did he live where you lived or in another house?
No, he didn't live where we lived, but I kind of part-time worked for him.
And he lived here in Stillwater
Yes,
when
he
you
lived
guys
in
too?
Stillwater.
So did he have like a setup like in his garage?
No, it wasn't, no. Not here in Stillwater. No.
You had to make it somewhere else and bring it in?
Hey, old KD Grinder was he's the sheriff back then?
I don't know the answer to that, but
He used to tell him all the time, he said, I'm going to get you. He said, no, you're not going to get me because I ain't doing nothing. If that guy only knew. He wasn't very bright.
So there would have been a still somewhere outside of Stillwater?
Yes, it was outside of Stillwater. He didn't have no steel in Stillwater. His steel was outside of Stillwater.
And was he the one who made the moonshine, or was someone else making it?
Well, that was a group of them guys.
Uh-huh.
And they made the moonshine.
And what was it that you did for them? You said you worked for them. What would you do for them?
Different little thing. I'd go to the store. You know, you couldn't go in the store and buy 100 pounds of sugar. So I would buy all I could carry, which may have been 15 or 20 pounds. And that's what I and most of them, that's the reason today, I don't drink. I don't smoke and don't do drugs, thank God for that. Because my uncles, they used to just say, here they come. And they was all about half drunk when they got to the house. And they had them used to just run me up a creek. But the reason I don't do no drugs, my dad, his name was Thurman. He was a registered nurse in Detroit, Michigan.
Oh, really? Yeah?
Yes. And I went to visit my dad. And when I got to Detroit, over to my stepmother's house, she took me over, but he had gone to Pontiac, Michigan, which is about 20-some miles from Detroit. And the guy said, "Oh, you Thurman's boy." He said, "You spin me in with your dad." I said, "Yeah." So he took me. I don't know the guy's name, because whoever he is, God bless him. He may be dead and gone. I do not know. He took me back. I don't know what they call this ward, but it was full of them people that was. Some of them were cocaine addicts, heroin addicts. Some of them was chained down. And he took me back there and I looked in there. Thanks to that man right there. I looked in there and I said, "Man, I'm not gonna never be like that."
How old do you think you were when you went on that trip?
To see my dad,
Mm-hmm.
I was probably about 20.
20.
Somewhere along in there. Or maybe a little younger.
But it was pretty harrowing, pretty.
At this hospital that he worked.
And a terrible sight to see.
And that terrible sight to see the ward back there. I don't know if it was the nut ward or what they call it. But this guy, he just took me back there. He said, "You Thurman's boy." I said, he said, "You come with me." And what he did, it made a big change in the things that I did. Because I didn't do no drinking, no smoking, and didn't fool with no drugs.
Yeah.
Thank God for that. Never smoked a joint. I'm 76 years old. I can hold my right hand to God, so I ain't never smoked a joint. And it's all because of that doctor. And I can't even remember his name.
Well, it was unusual for a guy at that time to be an RN.
Well, my dad was a medic.
Mm.
In the
war.
Yes. And he come out, he worked for Chrysler and whichever them, I don't know which one of them places he worked, but they was always going out on strike. And one day he said, I can go back to school on the GI Bill. Forget that. So that's what he did.
Well, how had he met your mother if he was in Detroit all?
He wasn't in Detroit all his life. He was in Oklahoma part of the time.
Okay. So.
And I guess, I may be wrong, but I think when he joined the military and when he got out of the military, he went back to Detroit.
Okay. More opportunity there.
I think that's what happened. But at that time, I was just a little kid. So I'm just saying that, and he never came back to Oklahoma.
So while he was in Michigan, so you would have had your uncles and your granddad here as like male figures in your life. Were there some other men in the neighborhood who you kind of felt were like mentors to you?
One of them, the guy's name was Carlton Johnson. Everybody called him Billy.
And who was he?
He drove the school bus.
School bus.
Yes. If you interview some of these other guys, they'd have told you he drove the school bus.
Yeah, I was just surprised that I didn't remember his name as being, because I've heard talk.
His name is Talton.
Yeah.
But everybody called him Billy. As a matter of fact, he had his own little, I don't know what kind of service, mowing yards, cleaning the house. As a matter of fact, I worked for him.
And he gave you work to do?
Yes. All the time. Say, hey, when you get to school, come, I got this here I want you to do, and that's what I want you to do. It might have been some cleaning somebody's house. That's not my house. If you walk in my house right now, and I'm come from Ponca City Church, you won't find a dirty dish. The beds is made up, the bathrooms is made up, the house is clean. And that's my grandkids. When they was out, they just throw it down here, throw it down there. And I said, the only time my house gets like this is when y'all come. And if you notice, Grandpa don't never invite you.
So that's actually, I mean, this is pretty stereotypical, but for a man, right, that's a little more unusual.
Yeah, but them kids is winning one and not the other.
But when you were younger, that's when this sort of thing, takes this being neat as a pin.
I started that. I had an uncle. His name was Henry. And he was, other than T.C. Lux, my uncle was the sharpest man, white or black, it was his place. He stayed clean. He got killed in a car wreck trying to make it. He bought a new car, was coming from Wichita to Stillwater, trying to make it in an hour, and he's buried in Wichita. And I said, man, that's when I get up to where I can do, that's just the way I'm going to be.
So that made a really big impression. I was going to ask if it was your grandma or your mom who had such a big impression.
No, well, Mom.
But it was your uncle.
My uncle. He was, his name was Henry. Sharp guy.
Now, you said there was just one other person who was sharper?
T.C. Lux.
Now, who was that?
Just a guy who lived in the neighborhood, lived right down next to the Methodist church and worked up at, I may be wrong, I think he worked either for the telephone company or Safeways. I'm not sure, so you can't quote that.
One or the other.
But he was a sharp cat, like my uncle. He was as sharp as a tack.
You mentioned the Methodist church, and that's because it's not that you're talking about the one that used to be in the neighborhood.
It's not there anymore.
So, do you know much about it? Did you ever attend services there?
No, I never did attend church. My mother was holding this, so that's where I went.
To Lawson Temple?
Yes, Lawson. Yeah, but you see, that was the Baptist church before they had to move on the kind of the end of flood.
Oh, yeah.
So they moved to on Knob Block on the corner, and then they were right here, and right down the street was a Holiness Church, and over there on 10th Street, on West 10th Street was the Methodist Church, right next, not too far from the greenhouse. There used to be a big greenhouse down there on the corner. As a matter of fact, the maddest I ever been in my life is on kind of that greenhouse.
What's that? Tell us the story.
Well, we was always doing little stuff, especially during Halloween. And we would do little stuff like turn over privies, because 99% of the people had outdoor toilets, and we would turn them over, do other little bad things. But one year, one of the guys just buried last month, his name is Albert Jones.
Oh, I didn't realize.
He passed out. I got him and spoke at his funeral.
And he was quite small, right?
We called him Early, like his dad's name was Early. And we would do that. So there was this one, we did that. In 1 year, my mother, Julie's mother, his mother, some of the other guys say, you guys, please don't get into nothing this Halloween. So we promised. I said, Mom, I'm not going to do. We all promised our parents and didn't do nothing. There was a guy named Skippy Sanders, and I think who else was in there? Skippy or something. It was three of them. They were down at the greenhouse knocking out glass, and the police caught them. So what they did was went to naming names. He said, well, June Lee was over there, Charlie was over there, Ben, and we haven't been near the place. So the next morning, I'm feeling pretty good. And my mother said, nope. I said, Mom, I ain't even threw a rock at a cat. The next thing you know, police is at the door.
Officer Manuel?
No, it wasn't him. He might have been there, because he was African-American policeman. So anyway, they rounded us up. We didn't go to jail. They didn't put us in jail. But we had to go before the judge. And he said, boys, I'll never forget that. He said, now, fellas, y'all gonna have to pay for all that glass that y'all broke out down there. Y'all know, we haven't broke out no glass. We wasn't even down there, but that was, let's talk to this table. You didn't pay that no attention. So they had the bill, say, well, you guys, we done got the price of what it takes to replace those windows, and this is how much each one of you owe. So you're gonna have to pay that. So that wasn't my little money I had saved up. So we got together and said, man, we're gonna get them guys. I guarantee you. And for maybe 2 years, when they saw us, they was gone. And finally one day we were sitting and saying, man, we done got after them guys enough, let's just forget about it. So we did that. And we was going to tell them, but they took off running anyway. That was funny. And finally we got one of them say, man, we done. That's over and done with. I just don't know why y'all would say we did, because normally the years in the past we had been doing it, but we didn't do it that year. And I was mad at them. We was mad at them guys. If we could have caught them, ain't no telling what we would have done to them. But we didn't ever catch them, because they was a little swifter than we was.
Fast.
Were they about the same age, or were they?
Yeah, but it was one old Don was a little under us. Him and Duke both was maybe a year or so under us. And they thought they was gonna do that because everybody in town had heard about some of the little stuff we did around Halloween. Like old son, he had an A model, which you crank it. So we crawled under the back end of it and jacked it up till the tires was about that far off the ground. And we put a block under so it's sitting on that block, but the tires ain't touching the ground. he stayed about half drunk. He come out there and cranked her up and got her started and jumped in her. He said, man, she's running and going, but she ain't going nowhere. So just about that time he ripped it up. We snatched the block out of her. He jumped down the street like a bullet.
And what was his name? Do you?
He was one of them shin-offs.
Ah, gotcha.
Everybody called him son.
That was his nickname.
Yes.
You know, I haven't heard very many people talk in detail as much about the Halloweens, but would you guys like trick or treat? Did trick or treating happen?
We didn't do back then. We didn't do no trick or treating. We tricked, but we didn't treat.
No treats, just the tricking.
It's just the same thing as 4th of July. We had our little group. We all had nicknames. Bally, Masai, Hoochie. Albert was Early, and we always like stick. We were like that, but we were not a gang, but we were close knit. And what we would do, we would send a guy over here, then we send one over here, and a guy was on here, and we knew the old ladies that would call the police. So we we had park crackers pop. You know, you get them black cats. If you pop the 50 black cats on, you know how they come in a pack. If you did 50 of them, 48 of them would pop. So we always got the black cats, and we would go over here by my feet. And we'd start packing. She'd call the police. Here come the police right there. Now they here. Then we had this guy over here pop them. And here they come. Time they get over here, we done switched over here. So finally, they would throw up their hands and say, forget it, going back to the police station. Now, that's the little things that we did.
What, would they have parades during the 4th of July?
Well, if they did have a parade, I never went to it.
Don't recall that.
I don't recall that. So we're talking maybe 54, 55 along in there. We was 13, 14 years old guys. And still, at that time, the schools hadn't been integrated.
Right.
So we were predominantly in this area. Mm-hmm. But we took care of each other. If you did something to one of us, you got to get us off. That's just the way we were.
What was your nickname?
Baldy.
Baldy.
Just like I am now.
Did you have your hair cut down? Is that why they called you Baldy?
It was cut down, but it wasn't completely bald like it is now. That's why they called me Baldy. And some guys called me Ike. Big Freddie called me Ike.
Now,
Jones.
Why would that be?
I don't know why. Probably because of my uncle.
Isaac. Ike.
His name was Isaac. Everybody called him Ike. And them guys had a little old band. They had a number 2 wash tub with a deal on it like that, and like a doo-doo-doo-doo-doo. And then they had different things, bottles, and one of them had an old guitar, and one of them had a harmonica. They sound pretty good.
Now, where would they play?
Anywhere that they you know, there were several little clubs, you know, actually little what back then what we would call is a juke joint.
That's what Miss Bailey says. Yeah.
Well, that's what we call them.
Mm-hmm.
So them guys could play. Melvin Arbuckle, them guys could, boy, they sound pretty good if you put a little cup out there, somebody drop a quarter in it, 50 cents, $1. That's what they did.
Did they have a name for their band?
Not that I know of. I don't. If they did, I don't remember what it was.
Were the juke joints in the neighborhood?
Oh yes.
Like where do you know where it is?
Well, let's see. There was, and you wouldn't necessarily would say Leo Connor had a place. I know you've heard that name. If you done interviewed any of the rest of the guys,
you'll have to say the name again.
What, Leo Connor?
No.
And then Big Boy Brown.
Yeah, Big Boy. Yeah.
Then Lena's.
Yeah.
Then the Rose Bowl.
Yeah, Rose Bowl.
Oh, yes. Back them day, and back in the day, we got one little bad thing we did. Because if he hadn't been doing what he was doing, we wouldn't have got him. His fault. If he rolled over in his grave, it was his fault. I tell him, I said, "Nah, Mr. Connor, that's your fault. Because we caught you." And they said, "There you go." So he had a barbecue pit. He sold barbecue. And he had barbecue, and he had about maybe 25 slabs of ribs on the pit that was already done. And we saw him doing something that he didn't have no business doing. So we had just come down off of Stillwater Creek and earlier had them horses, Topsy and Blue, I think they were. And we come across that field and saw him. So when he went over there where he went, we took every rib off. He took every rib, all his ribs. We got them. Somebody come to order ribs. He went out there to get them, and the pit was empty. And for years and years and years, he said, "Whoever, I'm gonna kill them. If I find out who they is, they good as dead." But he never did.
So you said that you'd all come from Stillwater Creek, so just literally the little creek that's right out here?
No, that's not a stick. You go down, you know where the cesspool used to be? You don't know. And let's see. Wait a minute, what street was that? Let's see, Hester, go down Hester, go across, you know where Adams Pecan Grove was.
Oh,
and that drainage ditch would run down there and tie into Stillwater Creek. Well, we'd been down there, like we always had a little deal. You know, we shoot a little bird or something. We put him in a cot, boil him and stuff like that. That's how we got him.
You'd put him in a what?
In a little we had a little old pot about that big around, like yay tall, and we put bricks around it, little grate over it, and we could cook stuff. If we caught a fish big enough, we could. That's what we did.
So down at the creek, you'd fish.
Yeah, we do it fish. Yeah, and go swimming.
Was it a swimming creek?
No. That's why we went swimming. Though it wasn't no swimming creek, but we jumped in it and went swimming. So we had been across there. We cut by earliest place where his horses was, and we saw him. That's how we got him. And for years and years, lady, this is true story. For years and years, he be talking about that. He went on, and then he got old. He was a pretty old man. And one day at the school reunion, we decided we all got together and said, "Hey, let's tell him." I said, "No, boy, you tell him." I said, "Okay, I'll tell him." So we Mr. Leo, he said, "Yes." He said, I said, "You remember when you lost all them ribs?" He said, "Yes, if I knew who they were, they wouldn't be here now." I said, "Well, here we are. We got you." And he raised up out of the seat like that. I said, "Oh, back up. Think back to what you was doing." He said, man, don't never tell nobody that.
So what was it he was doing? That
Something he
shouldn't-
didn't have no business.
What was that?
No, I ain't gonna tell
Not
you
gonna
that.
say
I ain't
it.
gonna
Okay.
say that. We got him clean.
And so he's like, just, I'll
Man,
let you go.
there was 5 of us. We had about 5 slabs, cooked ribs apiece.
Were they good? I'm assuming they were really
Oh,
good.
yes, they was very good. He was a very good cook. Yes, sir.
Now, where would he gotten those slabs of?
Well,
Ribs.
let's see, that was John Strader, and that was Hoochie, and there's another brothers. They were butchers. They all worked for the packing house.
Was that in Stillwater?
Yes, not actually, more like Perkins.
Oh, uh-huh.
Them guys would butcher them, they worked they butchered them hogs and cattle and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
They was big guys. There wasn't no little old bitty fellas. Old John and Hoochie, and there was one more of them brothers. It was 3 of them. They all were Striders. And they would, So that's where he would get his ribs from and stuff when they butchered them hogs, because they had a I don't know what you call it, they had a pit where they hang them hogs up in the air. Have you ever seen them do a hog? They would first they'd butcher them, then they hang them up, then they drop them down in that hot water, then they scrape all the hair and stuff off of them, get all the parasites off of them, and then they was butchers cut them up.
Were you have you gone out there and you?
No, I never went out there.
So, what other types of businesses were in the neighborhood? Is there something that really stands out to you as like a really strong business in the neighborhood that was owned by some of the fellow neighbors?
No, not that I know of. If the guys didn't have some little juke joint to run, I think one guy might have had a little old taxi place where he actually he didn't have a license, but if you needed to go someplace, and he may charge you 50 cents or something like that, but that's how he made money. But as far as businesses, no. Let's see, Old Carlton, Billy, it was several guys had lawn services. And the biggest one was old Billy, Carlton Johnson, because he hired 5 or 6 guys, myself included. And he was well known and well liked in the black community as well as the white community for what he stood for.
So would you do yard work outside of the black community?
Yes, we
yourself?
do yard work outside of the black rubber, around the campus and all around like that. And he has some rules you have to follow. Say, hey, when you go in, say like if we coming to clean your house up, we're gonna come in there and clean your house, and he would say, don't touch nothing in there that's not yours. Because if you do, you done here. That's the way he was. That's the reason people, the people would trust him with their houses. He lived out, let's see, south. He lived in the country, southwest of Stillwater, straight out. Well, back then it was 40 highway, but now it's 177 that goes down and ties into 33. But back then, in them days, it was 40, and that's before they put old Huff had his junkyard out there and all that. Before they made all these changes around in Stillwater, before all these houses was, when they had the drive-in theater and all stuff like that.
Would you go to the drive-in?
all the time. We had a system.
What was that?
We only had to pay for 2 guys. The other 9 got in free.
How'd that work? Tell us more.
It worked good for the guys that knew how to do it, but when you got them rookies in there, they got caught at the end of the day. So we said, we ain't doing that no more.
Hide in the bottom of the car?
Hide in the bottom and lady, back then, to the few of us had cars. Albert always had a car. I had an old car. Jack Back had a car. Charles had an old car. One said too little. He's either half running or you're pushing it. So we kind of eliminated that guy because his car wasn't no. And if the police would stop any one of these cars that we had on the highway, you would find a boot. You would find hot patches. You would find inner tubes and tires. Because if we're going down the road, we in a hand pump up. If we had a flat, and if it had a split in it, we put a boot in there and an inner tube in there and pump it up. Keep on going. Right straight down. Let's see, that's not Black Hester. Right on the west side of the school, which is what's that? 12th Street runs by that school.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, right on the corner of 12th and Hester, whatever that was. In the back used to be a well back there.
Like an oil well?
Yes, oil well. I'm saying oil well, and they would let us get the drip gas back then. But they don't do that now because they don't throw away nothing. I retired from Continental Oil Company, so they don't do that anymore. They use everything that goes through. But during that drip gas, they had a barrel. It would go off in that barrel, and they would let us have it.
And that would run the car?
Well, you had to know how to mix it with regular gas. And, during that time, regular gas had lead in it. So we finally figured out how to mix it where it wouldn't plug up the spark plugs. Just like a little chemist working here. So we figured it out. And man, we burned up a lot of drip gas that didn't cost nothing. Just know the mixture.
So just going all around town, or would you guys go out further to?
Oh, man, we went everywhere. We would go to Cushing. We would go to the 89ers over in Guthrie. We didn't hang around too much in Oklahoma City very much. But we went to all these other little old towns like Stroud and Chandler and places like that.
Did you make it to Boley?
Yes, we would go down to Boley to the rodeo.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
Oh, that's right. That's why we would go. We would always be out chasing the girls. And all you needed back there was a little gift for gas.
So did you have sweethearts while you were in any particular sweethearts?
Yeah, I had a sweetheart in Stillwater. Yes, I did.
Now, who was your sweetheart in
Her
Stillwater?
name was Duran.
Duran?
Yeah, Dora. Her name was Dora. I had a sweetheart in town, but I also had a sweetheart over in Cushing. I had a sweetheart in Devonport. But I always kept it from her because she was the main squeeze. She was the one that I took if I was going to the show. She said, "You taking me to the show?" So that's the way it was. I'm taking her to the show.
Now to the show at the drive-in or the other theaters?
No, yeah. I don't think I ever took her to the drive-in, but I took some girls to the drive-in, but it wasn't her. I would take her to, first it was the Mecca. It only had 12 seats in it.
Oh, I had no idea.
Then across the street and down the street a little ways was the Aggie. And actually we had the best seating over at the Aggie because we had to sit upstairs. We had
Yeah.
2 sections upstairs where we was allowed to see. Some of the white folks find out it used to be a seating, so they just mobbed us like that. You know,
They wanted up there too.
they wanted up there too.
So
And-
Mecca, though, they didn't have segregated seating at the Mecca?
Yes, they had seating downstairs for all the whites, and then upstairs they had a little spot, 12 seats for blacks,
So, the 12 seats were the ones that were
For
for the
black.
black people.
and then the Leachman was down the street on the other side. Now we couldn't go there.
Now, why is that?
It was a theater called the Leachman. Look it up,
But why couldn't you go in there?
because they didn't allow African Americans in there.
They didn't have a area set aside either.
Didn't have a what?
They didn't have a
They didn't have no
area
seats set aside.
either.
If they would have had a sign, there would have been no blacks allowed.
Now, speaking of that, we've kind of tried to ask around, were there signs like that up around Stillwater?
It may have been, but me personally, I never saw one. The only one I ever saw was you go down 51 Highway and you get on 108 and go to Glencoe. There was a sign out there saying, none after dark. I wish I had that old sign.
Yeah.
So finally, when integration and all this stuff come about, they couldn't do that.
Yeah. Well, you had mentioned that several places you couldn't go into, and one of them was the public library.
The public library, we couldn't go into the public library. We had our own little library down in Washington.
And Mrs. Ward was
Mrs.
the
Ward, that was
librarian.
Lee's wife. That's Goat. We call him Goat.
Called him Goat?
That's right.
I hadn't heard that.
Well, some of the other guys might have been not holding on to tell you, but he was called Goat, and he was the principal of Washington School, and his wife was the librarian.
Now, is Goat a nice term, or was that meant to be not a nice term?
It might have had something to do with that. I don't know. That's the way. When I got to going to school, like you didn't nobody call him that to his face, only with his back turned.
So, had you ever? How did you know that you couldn't go into the public library?
When you go up and they wouldn't let you in.
So, for example, it wasn't just necessarily that people you just learned it from other people, but
No, if you
when
want-
you actually tried to go in.
And you try to go in there, and they would just like some of the restaurants around here. They put you out. They wouldn't let you in the front door until about, I'm gonna say, after 1965.
Yeah. Yeah.
About 1965, sometime during that time.
What are some of the other places that you'd, be treated differently in? Other than the library, the theaters, some of the restaurants, I'd have to imagine.
Some of the restaurants and a lot of the business places downtown.
If you try to shop.
If you wouldn't try to shop, they wouldn't let you in. And I can remember when at Oklahoma State, I'm not talking something out. I'm talking African Americans couldn't even go to school out there.
Yeah. No, did things just change very gradually, or did you really notice
Well, you
a
take-
big change?
Well, it's a big change on account of the law.
Mm-hmm.
You say you cannot publicly discriminate against nobody. That was a law. So you couldn't do that. So there's a lot of people didn't like it. I got a book at the house. It's called The Green Book. I don't know if y'all ever heard of it, but I got a copy of it. It was a book for all of Oklahoma, Texas, California, all of the places where blacks could not go in these places. I got the book at home.
And did it have listings for Stillwater?
I don't know if Stillwater was in there or not. It actually it didn't. It mostly listed the places where you had to go. You could go.
That's why it was green. It's green for go.
The Green Book, yes. That's what it was called, the Green Book. And you probably can go to Amazon. I think they took it out of publication in maybe 1958 or something like that. You can still get a copy of it. And it tells you you're traveling down the highway, and you get to Oklahoma City, places where you could go and get a motel, where you could go into the restaurant and get something to eat, places where you could go.
And so did people have copies of the Green Book here in Stillwater when you were a kid?
I got a copy of it.
That you might have gotten a long time ago.
Yeah, I think it went out of publication maybe, let me say, 1957 or something. It may be later. I'm not 100% sure, but I got a copy of it. And matter of fact, I had my grandkids, they spend more time looking through it than I thought they would. Because there were several places in Oklahoma City, Enid, where you could go, and traveling down the highway where you could stop and get gas if you had to stop in such a place. And when you got south of down the main Dixon line, it was, lady, you wouldn't have no idea some of the early professional athletes, what they had to put up with to just, make, like them guys that did Boston, the Boston Celtics. Some of them guys made Boston's Celtics championships every year for so many years, and they couldn't go over there and sit down with the team and have lunch. I was rough. And, old Bill and a lot of them guys way back then.
Well, this Green Book, did you have it in your car when you and your buddies were traveling around?
Well, when we traveled around, it's from knowing. All the places we went to, we knew where we could go. In Stillwater, I'll tell you something, lady, in this town right here, you get over here on Main Street, let's see, this used to be the junior high, where this library is. And then on up the road right there where the community center is, that was the high school. And if you go by that high school, go up there, right on the corner over there, I can't think of it, there was a grocery store called Marvin's Grocery Store. Right up the street a little ways, that guy in there fixed the best hamburgers that they ever fixed in Stillwater, I guarantee you. And you could go in there, but you had to go around to the back, and he would hand them to you out of the back. They was $5 for $1, and we bought hundreds of them.
But it had to be served out the back door.
Out the back door.
Most of the things were like that. Most of the businesses
Yeah,
were
some
like
of
that then.
some of the places like that, And some of the places you couldn't even get nothing out of the back.
Yeah.
But they would allow African Americans to work in them under domestic.
Yeah.
Hotel maids and shoe shine boys and different stuff like that. Some of the guys had pretty good job where it used to be at Marva and my buddy probably was the first African American in Stillwater to be a shop manager at an automobile place. His name is Bowling. And my mother, God rest her soul, was probably the best dressed black woman in Stillwater, Oklahoma. For the simple reason is how good she was with a needle and thread and a sewing machine. She worked for a bunch of wealthy white folks. and they would give her clothes. And she would come home, real expensive clothes. She would rip them up and fix them where she could wear them. And matter of fact, they used to have a program in school called the operetta. And she made all of the programs for her. She made all of the uniforms for the operetta.
How many would that have been?
Oh man, my mother had the knack with a needle and a thread. If you go down to Oklahoma City right now and go to that graveyard, her headstone is your face. A sewing machine on one corner, a needle and a thread on the other one, a thimble. That's on her headstone. She died December the 4th, 2010.
Well, when you all came to Stillwater, what sort did she work outside of the home?
Yes, she had to work.
And what was her work? What did she do?
She worked as a maid.
And so would she also sew clothes like for other people?
No, she would do a lot of ironing. She had a rack in the house. She would iron, say like the people at Cats. You know, Cats, are they still up there?
No.
Closed down.
Cats department store?
It's gone.
Oh, my mother she worked for them. She would iron their clothes, have them on them racks, and they would come to the house and get them.
May I have your attention, please? The library will close in 30 minutes. Please allow adequate time for material checkout as we
She
will
did stuff like that. I don't know how she picked up that with that. I can't tell you. She used to make my shirts, dresses and stuff for my sister. It was just a gift God gave her.
Yeah.
And another gift she had, if she'd have been allowed, she'd have been a white person. She'd have made it skates. On them skates. Skates.
Roller skates?
Roller skates.
What? Explain that.
Well, she could skate.
And she could make the skates.
And no, she didn't make the skates, but she could
gotcha.
skate. In
She could
her
roller
late
skate.
years in life, when she'd skate to the grocery store, things like that. But she never had the opportunity, like if she was today, she would have a shot at it. But
She'd
back
be a
then,
part of our roller derby.
Yeah, she probably would, because she could skate.
How unusual! I hadn't heard of people skating that much.
Well, man, it's a lot of things that African American had the ability to do that just didn't get no opportunity to go beyond this little set. And that woman could sew. Even when she was in the nursing home, that she did all the sewing. I go in there to visit my mother, she'd be over there stitching up the drapes and stuff like. I do not know if she ever had any official learning for that, or it's just a gift God gave her. I can't answer that.
Well, did she quilt as well?
Oh yes.
Did she?
I don't even know if women still do that. They used to have them sewing bees.
Yeah.
I don't even know if they still do that.
Did they used to do that here in Stillwater?
Yeah,
Would you see them
some of these women did that.
get around together and
Yes.
all quilt
Well,
together?
back then, you did what you had to do to keep a roof over your head and food on the table.
And she was a single parent, it sounds like,
Yes.
having to do that.
And she never learned. She never did drive. One day, she was in her 70s. She say, "Boy," that's what she, "I want you to teach me how to drive." I said, "What?" She said, "I want you to teach me how to." I said, "Mom, don't you think you're a little bit old for that?" She said, "I ain't too old to do nothing. I want you to teach me how to drive." But I never did. And another thing, she could cook. Good God Almighty. Man, back during them days when they had all that, what do they call that? all that food they used to give away, that cheese,
Commodities.
commodities back in spam. Man, she could fix that spam up. Oh man. And fish, Jesus Christ. And the only thing my mother could do was shoot. Boy, you know, shoot, be down in the woods, boom, boom, a squirrel or a rabbit.
Really?
Oh, yes. Being born on in the country.
That's right. Yeah.
Quite an old gal.
Well, was she okay with you dropping out of school in the 9th grade?
No, I don't think she. I don't. If she never did say nothing to me about it, because I wasn't the only one. I know some guys that dropped out and then went back and got a diploma, but I wasn't one of them. But I did all right.
How'd you end up at Conoco?
Well, I went to work when I got out of the service, I went to work for a place called Gruner's. And they made those big old bits like they use when they drilling these oil wells or drilling in rocks and stuff. They made them bits. So that was heat treating and grinding and all that as I started. And I stopped in one time, another guy, his name was Billy Maples in Ponca City. And he had been a professional football player. And he put my name in, and I went in and took the little old test. They gave me a little old test. It's kind of stupid to me. It was kind of bothered what little intelligence I had. That test was stupid. It says, Johnny had 4 apples. He gave Leroy 1. How many did he have left? Question like that. I almost got him and walked out. But some say, no, stay on and take the test. Finish the test. So I finished the test and I headed to the guy in there. And he graded the test. He said, well, you did real good on the test. I said, what was my score? But he never would tell me what my score was. But during this time, I was working out of Gruner. One day, Billy Maple come in the back door. He said, hey, man, they looking for you down at Conoco. They've been trying to get over. They got a job for you if you want it. So and so and so. So I say, man, I got a job. You just can't be coming in here on my job like this. Say, you couldn't wait. He said, if you start, I said, I got to give you the right thing. I said, I'm going to do the right thing, give them some kind of notice to let them know, because them shavings off of them, I moved them shavings and all that kind of stuff out there for old Gruner. And so I said, well, I'll stop by the personnel office when I get off, and I'll tell them to give me a week of stuff, because I want to give them a week's notice. So when my foreman came in, I told him, I say, hey, man, I got a chance to get a job down the Conoco in the refinery, so I'm going to give you a week notice. He turned around and said, you can go right now. That's what he said. So I said, okay. I took that apron off, went and punched my time out and left. Next morning, I was in that refinery working.
And how long did you stay there?
33 years. I retired from. They were actually, old man Phillips is the one who started Continental Oil Company. And then it went to Conoco. It went to Continental Oil Company. Then it was DuPont. I don't know if y'all knew that, but DuPont owned us for a while. Then it went to ConocoPhillips. And now it's just Phillips. And I wind up, this is record, I wind up the refinery trainer. Everybody walked through them doors, I'm the guy you had, whether you had got engineering degree, because I had some of them engineers, they come in there and just got an engineering degree. They never been in a refinery. Here they come. It's a little smart ass, excuse me for saying that. And there's one in particular. He was always interrupting in the class. He was always, and some of the other guys say, hey man, you need to do something about that turkey. I'm not going to lose my job. But, you know, like that. So one day I told him, I said, you know, there's a reason they got me in here. And it's because of my knowledge of refining. That's the reason I'm in here. And I said, now this is the way we're gonna do this. If I tell you that a mosquito can pull a plow, don't sit here and try to get me to explain how you hook him up and get your field plow. Because see, you're wasting time now. You could have your little field plow and go about your business. And he never said another word to me.
Then he was a good student.
Then
he was a good student.
Yes, for the time that he wasn't with Conoco very long.
So what year did you retire?
I've been retired now. Let's see, I'm 70. I'm 76. I'll be 77 this year. 60. Oh, I'm gonna go back, say 41, 2000 and something. Early 2000.
Now, did you end up marrying a Stillwater gal or a Ponca City gal?
No, my first wife, I've been married twice. My first wife was a Ponca City girl. And she had never had a guy take her out to eat. She'll tell you that herself. So I took her out to eat in what I call a fancy restaurant. And the first thing she ordered was a hamburger. I said, I can't believe you ordered that hamburger. She said, but look at the prices. I said, if I couldn't afford to buy what they got on that menu, I wouldn't have brought you in here. And I don't do hamburgers. And she started crying. So I said to myself, I'm going to carry your little silly behind home. That's going to be the end of first and last date. I didn't tell her that. I said to myself, this is going to be the first and last date. So I took her on home, said good night to her, didn't even try to kiss her good night at the door. She went on in the house. And then she was talking to some of her friends, said, I ordered a hamburger to kind of set him off. I'm trying to impress you, woman. You ordered a hamburger. So she got to talk to her friend. Next time I know she apologized, and hey, one thing led to another. Now she also worked for Conoco. And she lives in Stillwater.
Lives here in Stillwater.
Yes, she lives here in Stillwater. Conoco's, she in the time me and her was married, she used to get a job and quit. So when she put in the application out to Conoco, I said, why are you going to go out there and mess up a job for somebody that really needs it? You know you're not going to stay on that job. I was chewing out. But she said, I don't care about that. I'm putting my application in. They done hired me. I'm going to work. So she went on to work down there. And they put her in thin section. And this has to do with cores drilling them wells and things. But first they sent her, she could tell you all about the clouds and all that kind of crap. They sent her, the first place they sent her to Glasgow, Scotland. The company sent her to Glasgow, Scotland for some thin section. And some of the machines that she went over and bought for them things, I didn't know, she would tell you some of them things cost $67,000, $60,000 or $70,000 a piece. And then one day I I was in the control room sitting back there, and one of the guys say, boss, said there's a Russian operator on the phone for you. Say, who you know in Russia? I say, Phyllis is over there. The Conoco sent her to Russia.
Wow.
So I got to talking to her. So what they did, they said, well, we don't know how long your wife is going to be over there, but since she's over there, what we'll do is we'll pay for, that's when I first got my first passport. They said, you got to get you a passport. I did. I went and got my passport. They said, well, you can go over there and visit her twice a year at our expense. All expenses paid. We'll take care of it for you. But she didn't have to stay that long, and I never got to go. But she was in Glasgow, Scotland. Then they tried to put her in a place in Arizona, permanent. So she said, now, you know, my husband's working down there in the refinery. I said, well, we'll get him a job too. So anyway, they called me and asked me about it. Said, what is it gonna take? You know, if your house don't sell in X amount of days, we'll buy it. But I said, I ain't worried about that, man. I'm worried about the job y'all gonna put me on. What's gonna be my job?
Please bring all materials for this checkout to the front desk at this
So this is the way I put it to him. I said, well, in order for me to sell my home and go to Arizona on a job that I don't know nothing about, is I got to be under contract, like them football players. I'm on a 10-year contract for my starting with my present salary and raises on up and down the road. And I said, and if this job plays out within the 10 years, you pay my contract off. So they say, we'll get back with you. But they never did. Because she didn't take the job anyway. Yep.
I think we got him to get into it, didn't we?
So how many children do you have?
How many kids do I have?
Uh-huh.
Let's see, my son's dead. He died in 2016, right here in Stillwater. He was 49. Had a massive heart attack.
Wow.
He's the only boy I had, and the rest of them is 4 girls, 5 kids.
With the first wife or the second wife?
Huh?
With the first wife or the second wife?
2 and 3.
2 and 3.
All grown and gone. My daughter, I got a daughter in Fort Worth, Texas. She's in some kind of deal with the hospital. She won't leave that place. She's in Fort Worth. My other daughter, Treva, is a recording star, spiritual. She sings spiritual songs, and she's in Houston. And then I got one daughter that's in Edmond, and another one in Moore.
Okay.
She won't leave there.
After the tornadoes, you mean?
Yeah, that's the reason why I tried to get out of there. The last time, she called me and she said, Dad, I know you've been trying to get a hold of me. He said, but the only thing in the yard, there are 2, 3 little old sticks out there. No damage, no place. And she wouldn't get it. That's the second tornado that's a hit there since she been there. I just took her home yesterday to move, because she don't have a driving license. She don't drive. She would learn how to drive and had a wreck, and that killed that. She won't get on the stuff. But my youngest daughter, she drives. She got 2 kids. One of them goes to Edmond, Santa Fe, and the other one goes to God dang, I can't think of the name of that little school. It's from 6th grade. She'll be in the 6th grade when school starts, 6th to 8th. Because in Edmond, Santa Fe, when you're in the 9th grade, you're a freshman. And that's the way it was when I went to school. A freshman in high school. And then I got a grandson down there. And he lives in Norman. He got his engineering degree from OU. You can check all this. He went up to Wichita, he has to have something to do with airplane design. He'd have to tell you just exactly what he did. He went up there, put in the application. They done closed a lot of that stuff down in Wichita. He went up there and put in the application. They said, Jeremy, we'll get back with you. And he had a job that he don't have to live normal. Most of the work, he does a lot of work on a computer from home.
Times sure have changed, haven't they?
Yes. Because I tried to get a job at Bowens myself. They wouldn't hire me, but they hired my buddy. His name was Ernest. They hired him, and he didn't stay there but 2 weeks. And then when they called me up saying, you can come, no. I got a job, but I lied. I didn't have a job, but that's what I told the guy in the personnel office when he called me. I said, you made your choice, now I'm making mine. I ain't coming to work up there. And didn't go.
And everything worked out pretty good, didn't it?
Yeah, everything, because the guy, he didn't work there 3 weeks because it was steady work. He didn't want no steady. He didn't stay there. I might would have stayed. I might have got to lack it. I got to lack in what I did for Conoco. They sent me to Twin Cities, St. Paul's, to the first computers that they put in that refinery. Well, I'm talking working computers. I'm not talking about like the guy got. I'm talking about computers that you can set down a program and say, if you're gonna run 100,000 barrels through this unit, there you go. Me and the guy named Danny Morgan, they sent us up there. And the first one was put in Rosemont, put in the first computers. And then something happened between Rosemont and the company. They took their computers out and put some others in. And then I started to quit them. Now they done sent me and Danny Morgan. He's still alive. He's still in Bunker City. They done sent us up there to that school. We done got them, and then they built what they call a centralized control room. All of the units, the number 1 CTU, the SAT gas, the coker, all the units used to have it be different. Now they got them in what they call a centralized control room. The big old comfortable chairs. The one thing they didn't put in there that I wanted when they was building that, what I wanted in there was a Bowflex. I say, hey man, these guys are gonna be sitting down here at these computers 8 hours a day. They need a little Bowflex. You get up over there during the lunch hour, you may walk 10 minutes. But they didn't put it in. I said, no, Benny, we can't put that in there for you. They didn't put it in. And then one day I was sitting down there, the boss called down there, he said, hey man, can we switch these units over to make? I said, well, let me look and see. So I said, yeah. He said, well, that's what we're going to do next week. And he said, oh, by the way, you're not going to be in the centralized control room. You're too valuable of a man down there in the refinery to be sitting up in there at one of them computers. I said, man, I done did all this, and I can't, because that's where I wanted to go. But they wouldn't let me. He said, you just stay down there. You won't be down there. What it was. That kind of got me. That really got me.
Disappointed, you mean?
Yes, very.
They needed you to teach the other guy, all those guys.
Yes. Sure did. I had one guy, and almost shut up. I had a guy named Robert Hill. I'm breaking these guys in on, say, like we have a sat gas operator. Sat gas is light ends. Propane, butane, light ends, units. I'm breaking these guys on, then they got the number one CTUs for the heavy stuff. Resid and stuff like that. And then the nap strippers and the kerosene deal. I'm breaking this guy in. A know-it-all fella. And I had about 5 guys I'm breaking in on this unit. And we're going through every day. And what I would do is they had a little 20-page test to take after the unit, but I done give them the questions. They didn't know they was getting them. So at the end, when you take the test, you already been over, because you've been over all the stuff out here on the unit, so you can pass this test. And I was telling this guy, had to go wrong. Dummy, here's me and the other 5 guys. It's, they got a lot of lines in that refinery. Pipes.
Yeah.
I don't know if you ever seen pipes and towers, cooling towers and stuff like that. Here we are. We're going over to the stripper. Looked around, had that guy going, there you go. And the guy said, Benny, what you gonna do? I'm gonna just let him go. Hell, he don't pay attention anyway, let him go. Just let him go. First time he took the test, he flunked it. All the rest of the guys passed. He's the only one who flunked it. And he said, you don't like me or something? I said, no, that ain't the point. I said, these guys passed that test because they paid attention. They know what to do if a big power failure. They know what to do if a tornado hit them tight. You don't know none of that stuff because you wasn't listening. That you go down there and they getting Bible information, man, you way down yonder someplace. So he said, can I get another? Get another? I said, yeah, you can start from day one. You can start over. And that guy started over, aced that test. Now he's way up down there.
Had to learn the hard way, didn't
Had
he?
to learn the hard way.
Tanya, go ahead.
I never had to fire a guy, but I had the authority to hire. One time the boss, he said, Benny, I want you to do me a favor. He was my boss. He said, I want you to tell old Tom to take a bath. I said, oh, no. I'm not going to tell him. I said, because I don't know how he may be offended. He said, that guy's got a body over there. He said, we need to and he's a good operator. He said, we need to come up with some way for his personal hygiene. So we thought about that, and I was sitting at the house that evening watching this commercial on TV. about the house of the soap for people who like people. So I said, man, I'm going to use that. So I got a bar down, I stopped by the store, I got a bar down soap. And I pinned it on the inside of his locker. I didn't say a word to him. I just put that bar soap in his locker. He saw that and he said, boss, there's a bar down soap in my locker. He said, you think people are trying to tell me something? I said, well, man, if somebody was to put a bar of soap in mine, I would know what they was trying to tell me to use it. So he did. You know what he did? He's standing there. He did. Like that. That's what he did. He said, well, I guess I'm going to have to use it. And I see it. Being a smart ass, I said, well, don't let that be the last bar you got.
Please, the library is now closed. We will see you tomorrow at 9 a.m. Thank you. Have a wonderful evening.
Yeah, unfortunately.
And y'all done with me.
We are. You've been great. Thank you.
Yeah.
It's been really, really, really fun talking to you.
Well, I'll tell you what. It's like I tell my grandkids, my son, and all my son, like I used to tell him, he was 49 years old, died with he didn't die, he died at the hospital over, but they medified him from, it was Thanksgiving Day. My daughter had called me, she said, Dad, I got turkey, I got a ham, I got greens, I got this. You come tomorrow for Thanksgiving dinner. I said, okay, I'll be down there. And it was about 3:30 in the morning when the phone rang. His wife, her name is Nene. And she called, she said, you need to get to the Stillwater hospital as quick as you can. And hung up. I swear, that's what she did. So I got up and put my clothes on, shot down here to the hospital. He never regained consciousness. His birthday was in October. He died in November. Yep, 49 years old. I don't know, and it's not in the family. Not at least not on my side. Now his mother, she had right on the corner of 6th and Duck, her and Angie. She was going to the school to pick up our great-grandson. And she got right there at 6th and Duck. And she says to Angie, she said, Angie, I don't feel good. And she put her car in park. Boom, down right there she went. She had a massive heart attack. Her heart stopped beating. So Angie called 911 whoever, and they come right there on the corner, 6th and Duck. They hit her with that thing, defibrillator, I think it's called. And they rushed her to the hospital, and when she got to the hospital, her heart started beating again. And they hit her again, boom, boom, boom. And they got her going. So they called me and said, you need to get down here. So I came on down here. A doctor come out there and said, man, with all the stuff, we can't operate on her now. Let's just say that was on a Monday. That Wednesday, he come out there, he said, Mr. Westbrook, in order to save her life, we're going to have to operate on her right now. I said, well, go ahead on and operate on her. So they put 4 stents and 2 balloons in her. And she's up. God bless her. God really blessed her. Her name is Phyllis. God really blessed that woman. Because she got up in church, she said, I died twice in the same day. And God brought me back. She works every day. She did have a little cleaning business. She get that up. She works out there at the Tinkerfield Credit Union. We're out there on 6th Street. Then she had another little old crib deal job, but the lady moved to Kansas or California or something. And she didn't have to have one of them deals,
Pacemaker.
whatever.
Yeah.
She's a remarkable woman, as far as that goes. The good Lord has really blessed her to go through all that. Man,
Scary.
she got up in church and the pastor let her get up. She said, I'm telling you, for the first time in my life, I really do believe in God. Because I died twice in the same day, and I'm standing here to tell you. You need to change your, she was speaking to people out there. And she's a usher at the church because she ushered today.